Imagine this. It's your 8th month of pregnancy. You're glowing, surrounded by family, celebrating your birthday. Then the doorbell rings, and in walks your husband's secretary. She's holding ultrasound photos, claiming she's pregnant too. In one shocking moment, your perfect life explodes. But what if that wasn't even the biggest lie? When everyone turns against her, even her own mother, one man steps up, her father, a retired detective who starts digging. And what he uncovers will blow your mind. This story has betrayal, revenge, and a comeback you won't forget. So stay with me till the end, because trust me, the truth is crazier than anything you've imagined. And hey, if you love stories with shocking twists and powerful women who rise again, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps more people discover these unbelievable true tales. Victoria Hamilton stood in her kitchen, watching the October sun paint golden stripes across the marble countertops. At 35 years old and 8 months pregnant, she moved with the careful grace of someone carrying precious cargo. The smell of pot roast filled the air, mingling with vanilla candles she'd arranged on the dining table. "The birthday girl shouldn't be cooking," Frank Hamilton said from the doorway. Her father-in-law's voice carried that protective tone she'd grown to love over the past 7 years. At 64, the retired Chicago police detective still moved like he was ready to chase down suspects. "I wanted to," Victoria replied, adjusting her navy maternity dress. "Besides, cooking relaxes me." Frank's weathered face softened. "You remind me of Helen. She never could sit still either, especially when she was carrying Jackson." Victoria smiled at the mention of her late mother-in-law. Helen Hamilton had passed 3 years ago, but her presence still lingered in family stories, and Frank's occasional wistful glances at empty chairs. The doorbell chimed, followed by the sound of a key turning. "That'll be Sarah," Victoria said, recognizing her sister-in-law's signature entrance. Sarah Hamilton burst through the door, her nurse's scrubs replaced with a festive sweater. "Happy birthday, Mama." She wrapped Victoria in a careful hug, mindful of the baby bump between them. "How's my nephew doing today?" "Active," Victoria laughed. "I swear he's training for the Olympics in there." "Good, strong Hamilton genes," Frank said proudly, just like his father. As if on cue, they heard Jackson's BMW pull into the driveway. Victoria's heart still fluttered slightly at the sound, even after all these years. Her husband of 7 years walked through the door, his tailored suit slightly rumpled from a long day at Patterson and Associates. "There's my birthday girl," Jackson said, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. He kissed Victoria's cheek, his lips cool against her skin. "Sorry I'm late. Diane had me reviewing contracts until 6:30. "It's fine," Victoria said, though she'd noticed Jackson's increasing late nights over the past few months. "Dinner's almost ready." Madison Torres arrived next, Victoria's best friend since their Northwestern University days. The freelance consultant swept in with a designer purse and perfectly styled hair. As always, "Happy 35, darling. God, you're glowing. I hate how good you look pregnant." The dining room filled with warm conversation as they settled around the table. Victoria had used her grandmother's china, the delicate blue patterns catching the candlelight. Everything was perfect. The food, the company, the gentle jazz playing in the background. "So, Victoria," Madison said, raising her wine glass, "tell us about the Henderson Industries deal. I heard through the grapevine it's huge." Victoria beamed. "We're still in negotiations, but if it goes through, it'll be our biggest client yet. They want a complete rebrand, social media overhaul, the works." "That's my girl," Frank said proudly. "Building an empire while building a baby." Jackson shifted in his seat. "Maybe you should slow down a bit, Vic. You know, with the baby coming." "I'm fine," Victoria said gently. "The doctor says working is good for me. Keeps my mind active." "Speaking of the baby," Sarah interjected, clearly sensing tension. "Have you finished the nursery?" "Almost," Victoria said. "We're just waiting on the custom crib. It should arrive next week, right, honey?" Jackson nodded absently, checking his phone. Victoria noticed but said nothing. She'd learned to pick her battles, especially lately. The doorbell rang at exactly 8 o'clock. Everyone looked up, puzzled. "Are we expecting someone else?" Madison asked. "No," Victoria said. starting to rise. Frank waved her back down. "I'll get it," he said, already moving toward the door with the instincts of a man who'd spent 40 years being cautious about unexpected visitors. They heard muffled voices from the foyer, Frank's deep baritone and a woman's higher trembling tones. Then Frank returned, his face set in hard lines Victoria had never seen before. Behind him stood a woman who could have stepped out of a fashion magazine, 27 years old, with cascading dark hair and a form-fitting black dress that hugged dangerous curves. But her face was streaked with tears, mascara running in delicate rivers down her cheeks. "Jackson," the woman said, her voice breaking. Victoria watched her husband's face drain of color. His fork clattered against his plate. "Scarlett?" Jackson's voice came out strangled. "What are you doing here?" Scarlett Reeves, Jackson's secretary at Patterson and Associates, pressed a trembling hand to her stomach. Her eyes darted between Jackson and Victoria before settling on the floor. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want to do this here. I tried calling, texting, but you blocked my number." The room had gone deadly silent. Victoria felt the baby kick hard against her ribs, as if sensing the sudden tension. "Jackson," Victoria said slowly, "what is going on?" Scarlett looked up then, meeting Victoria's eyes for the first time. "I'm pregnant," she said. "3 months. It's Jackson's." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Victoria heard someone gasp. Maybe Sarah, maybe herself. Her water glass slipped from nerveless fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor with a sound like breaking dreams. "That's impossible," Jackson said, but his voice lacked conviction. His face told a different story, guilt written in every line, every twitch of his jaw. Scarlett reached into her purse with shaking hands, pulling out a folder. "I have the ultrasound, the test results, everything." She held them out like evidence in a court case. "I didn't know what else to do. The baby deserves a father." Madison stood up so fast, her chair toppled backward. "You lean little Madison," Frank said sharply. His cop voice. Everyone froze. Victoria couldn't move, couldn't breathe. 8 months pregnant with the baby she dreamed of for years, sitting at her own birthday dinner, watching her life implode in real time. The pot roast smell that had been so comforting and now made her stomach churn. "Jackson," she said again, her voice eerily calm. "Look at me." Her husband of 7 years finally met her eyes, and in that moment, she knew. The late nights, the distance, the way he'd been pulling away even as their baby grew inside her. "How long?" she asked. "Victoria, how long?" Jackson's shoulders slumped. "It was just once, after the firm's Christmas party. I was drunk. We were 3 months ago," Victoria said, doing the math, "when I was 5 months pregnant with your child." Sarah made a sound of disgust. Madison looked ready to commit murder. Frank stood perfectly still, his detective eyes taking in every detail, every reaction. And Scarlett Reeves stood in the doorway of Victoria Hamilton's perfect suburban home, hand on her still flat stomach, tears still flowing, waiting for someone to save her or destroy her. The candles on the table flickered, casting dancing shadows on the wall. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Victoria placed both hands on her swollen belly, feeling her baby, their baby, move inside her 35th birthday. The night everything changed. The night the lies began to unravel. The shattered glass lay scattered across the floor like diamonds in the candlelight. Victoria stared at the pieces, finding it easier to focus on them than on the woman standing in her dining room claiming to carry her husband's child. "You need to leave," Madison said, moving protectively toward Victoria. "Now." Scarlett shook her head, clutching the folder of medical documents. "I tried to handle this privately. Jackson wouldn't return my calls. I didn't know what else to do." "So you thought crashing my wife's birthday dinner was appropriate?" Jackson stood, his face flushed with anger or shame or both. "This is insane, Scarlett." "Sid?" Frank's quiet voice cut through the tension. Everyone turned to look at him. "Is it insane, son?" The way he said son, weighted with disappointment, made Jackson flinch. "Dad, this isn't... She's obviously having some kind of breakdown." "I am not having a breakdown." Scarlett's voice rose, hysteria creeping in at the edges. I'm pregnant with your baby, and you've been pretending I don't exist for 3 months. Victoria finally found her voice. Everyone stop. She pressed her palms flat against the table, using it to push herself to standing. At 8 months pregnant, every movement felt monumental. Sarah, can you take Madison to the living room, please? Vic, Madison protested. Please. Victoria's tone brooked no argument. I need to handle this. Sarah gently guided a reluctant Madison out of the room. Frank remained, positioning himself where he could see everyone clearly. Old habits. Sit down, Victoria told Scarlett. Both of you, sit. Scarlett perched on the edge of Sarah's vacated chair like a bird ready to take flight. Jackson dropped heavily into his seat, running his hands through his hair. Victoria lowered herself back into her chair with as much dignity as she could muster. The baby kicked again, reminding her of what truly mattered. Show me, she said simply. Scarlett slid the folder across the table with trembling hands. Victoria opened it, her marketing executive's eye automatically cataloging details. Ultrasound images dated 3 weeks ago, blood test results from a lab she recognized, a doctor's note confirming pregnancy, approximately 12 weeks along. The math was damning. Victoria, Jackson started. Don't. She didn't look up from the papers. Just don't. Frank moved closer, reading over her shoulder. She heard his sharp intake of breath. Scarlett, Victoria said, finally meeting the younger woman's eyes. Why didn't you go to HR? Why come here? Because I love him. The words tumbled out in a rush. I know how that sounds, but we have a connection. That night wasn't just some drunken mistake. Tell her, Jackson. Tell her how you feel about me. The silence stretched like taffy, sticky and suffocating. There is no us, Jackson said finally. What happened was a mistake. A terrible, awful mistake. Scarlett's face crumbled. You said you were unhappy. You said your marriage was falling apart. You said, stop. Victoria's voice could have frozen fire. Everyone stopped talking. She closed the folder, placed it precisely in the center of the table. Her hands weren't shaking. She noted this with distant surprise. This is what's going to happen, she said. Scarlett, you're going to leave. Now, we'll address this through proper channels, lawyers, paternity tests, whatever needs to happen. But not tonight, not in my home. But if you're really pregnant with my husband's child, Victoria continued, then we'll deal with that reality when it's confirmed. But you don't get to ambush me at my birthday dinner and expect… What? What did you think would happen here? Scarlett's tears started fresh. I just wanted him to acknowledge me, to acknowledge our baby. The baby you claim exists, Frank interjected. His tone was neutral, but Victoria caught the skepticism underneath. Dad, Jackson warned. No, he's right to question it, Victoria said. She stood again, one hand supporting her belly. Scarlett, I'm going to ask you one more time. Please leave. If you have Jackson's child growing inside you, we'll handle this properly, but not like this. Scarlett stood slowly, gathering her purse. At the doorway, she turned back. I'm staying at the Marriott downtown, room 412, in case… She looked at Jackson with naked hope. In case you want to talk. Then she was gone, leaving only the echo of her heels on the hardwood and the lingering scent of expensive perfume. The silence that followed felt alive, breathing, waiting. I'll start cleaning up, Frank said, moving toward the kitchen. Dad, wait. Jackson reached for his father's arm. You believe me, right? That this is all some crazy… Frank shrugged off his son's hand. I've been a cop for 40 years, Jackson. I know what guilt looks like. He left the room, leaving Victoria and Jackson alone with the ruins of her birthday dinner. Vic, Jackson started, was it really just once? He hesitated a beat too long. Yes. You're lying. She said it without heat, a simple observation. I can always tell when you're lying. Your left eye twitches. Jackson's hand moved unconsciously toward his face. I want you to leave, Victoria said. Dwanam. Pack a bag and go stay with your friend Derek or your brother or whoever will take you. But you're not sleeping in our bed tonight. Victoria, please, let me explain. Explain what? She turned to face him fully, her belly between them like a barrier. Explain how you slept with your 27-year-old secretary while I was carrying your child. Explain how you've been lying to me for 3 months. Explain how you let her develop feelings for you, Guo, enough to show up at our home. It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. Her voice remained steady, but inside she felt like she was dissolving. Tell me exactly what happened, Jackson. Because that woman didn't look like someone you had a meaningless one-night stand with. She looked like someone who thought she had a future with you. Jackson sank back into his chair. It started before Christmas, just talking. She was going through a rough time, her mom was sick, she was struggling with the workload. I was trying to be a good boss, a friend. And then? And then? He scrubbed his face with his hands. I don't know. You were so focused on the baby, on your company. Every conversation we had was about morning sickness or nursery colors or your latest client win. I felt like I was disappearing. Victoria laughed, a sound like breaking glass. So you found comfort in your secretary. How original. That's not... He stopped, started again. I never meant for it to happen. The Christmas party, we'd both been drinking. She told me she had feelings for me and I was weak. I was stupid. Was. It only happened once, I swear. The next day I told her it was a mistake. I tried to transfer her to another attorney, but she refused, said it would look suspicious. So you've been working with her every day for 3 months, knowing she's in love with you, knowing she might be pregnant. And you said nothing to me? Jackson's silence was answer enough. Victoria moved to the window, looking out at their perfectly manicured suburban yard. The swing set they'd bought in anticipation of children, the garden she'd planted last spring, the life they'd built together over 7 years. Do you love her? She asked quietly. No. The answer came quick, vehement. God, no, I love you, Vic. I love our life, our family. But not enough to stay faithful to it. She heard him stand, felt him move closer but not touch. He knew better than to touch her right now. I'll fix this, he said. I'll take care of everything. The paternity test will prove she's lying. And if she's not lying? The question hung between them like a blade. Then we'll figure it out. Together, we're having a baby, Vic. Our baby. That's what matters. Victoria turned to face him. No, Jackson. What matters is that 3 hours ago, I had a husband I trusted. A marriage I believed in. A family I thought was built on solid ground. And now I don't know what I have. Madison appeared in the doorway. Honey, Frank's loading the dishwasher and Sarah's making tea. I want Jackson to pack a bag and leave, Victoria said, not breaking eye contact with her husband. Madison, can you drive him wherever he needs to go? I don't trust him to drive right now. With pleasure, Madison said, ice in her voice. Vic, please. Go, Jackson, before I say things I can't take back. Before this gets worse than it already is. He looked like he wanted to argue, but something in her face stopped him. He nodded once, defeated, and headed for the stairs. Victoria sank into the nearest chair, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. The baby moved restlessly, responding to her stress. I'm sorry, little one, she whispered, rubbing soothing circles on her belly. Mommy's having a very bad birthday. From the kitchen, she heard Frank's voice, low and reassuring, talking to Sarah. In a few minutes, Madison would drive Jackson away from their home. Tomorrow, she'd have to face the reality of what came next. Lawyers, difficult conversations, decisions about a future that looked nothing like what she'd planned. But tonight, on her 35th birthday, Victoria Hamilton sat in her dining room, surrounded by cold food and shattered glass, and tried to remember how to breathe. 3 days after the birthday disaster, Victoria sat in her home office, laptop open to a spreadsheet that made her stomach turn. Joint bank accounts, the mortgage, credit cards. 7 years of intertwined finances stared back at her in neat columns. $50,000. Gone. She'd found the withdrawal that morning, a wire transfer from their savings account dated 6 weeks ago. The account they'd earmarked for the nursery, for her maternity leave, for their future. A knock at the door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. It's Frank, came the familiar voice. Come in. Her father-in-law entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. He'd been coming by every day since the incident, always with some excuse. Fixing a leaky faucet, checking the furnace, bringing groceries. Victoria knew better. Frank Hamilton was keeping watch. "Decaf," he said, setting a mug beside her laptop. "Sarah says caffeine's not good for the baby." "Nothing's good for the baby right now," Victoria muttered, then immediately regretted it. "Sorry, I'm not handling this well." Frank settled into the chair across from her desk. "You're handling it better than most would," he gestured at the screen. "Finding anything interesting?" $50,000 missing. Transferred 6 weeks ago to an account I don't recognize. Frank's expression didn't change, but Victoria had learned to read the subtle signs. The slight narrowing of his eyes, the way his fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around his coffee mug. "Maya?" he asked, indicating the laptop. Victoria turned it toward him. Frank studied the screen with the same intensity he'd once reserved for case files. "This routing number," he said slowly, "it's for a private account at Chase, not your usual bank." "Jackson banks with Wells Fargo." "We both do." "Exactly." Frank pulled out a small notebook, the kind Victoria had seen him carry since she'd first met him. "Old habits. Mind if I make some calls?" "Frank, you don't have to." "Yes," he said firmly, "I do. That's my grandchild you're carrying, and you're the daughter I never had. Let me help." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. Pregnancy hormones, she told herself, not the unexpected warmth of having someone firmly in her corner. "There's something else," Frank said, his tone shifting. "About the girl, Scarlett." Victoria's stomach clenched. "What about her?" "I've seen her before, not just around Jackson's office." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "3 weeks ago, I was having lunch with my old partner near the courthouse. She was there, in the parking garage, sitting in a car, a silver Honda." "So?" "So she was watching the entrance to Jackson's firm. Just sitting there, engine off, watching. Bill and I joked about it, thought maybe she was serving papers or something. But the way she was focused," he shook his head, "it stuck with me. Cop instincts, maybe." Victoria processed this information. "You think she's been stalking him?" "I think there's more to Ms. Reeves than meets the eye." Frank stood, "Which is why I ran her plates that day." "You what?" "Old habits," he said again, almost apologetically. "The car's registered to a Scarlett Reeves, age 27, current address in Uptown. But here's the interesting part. She's had 3 addresses in the past 5 years. Miami, Dallas, and now Chicago. She moves around a lot, so? So I made some more calls, quietly. Turns out Ms. Reeves left both Miami and Dallas rather suddenly, and in both cities she worked for law firms. The implications hung in the air between them. Victoria's marketing brain was already connecting dots, seeing patterns. "You think she's done this before," she said. "I think it's worth investigating." Frank moved toward the door. "I'm meeting Bill for lunch. He's still got connections in Miami-Dade, might be able to learn more." "Frank," Victoria called as he reached the door, "Jackson's staying at the Marriott downtown. The same hotel as—" "I know." His face hardened slightly. "I had a conversation with the front desk. They're in rooms on different floors. For now." After he left, Victoria returned to the financial spreadsheet, but her mind wandered. She pulled up Instagram on her phone, something she'd been avoiding since Saturday night. There it was, Baby Hamilton Journey. The account had been created 4 days ago, the night before her birthday. Already it had dozens of posts, ultrasound images, quotes about motherhood, photos of baby clothes with captions like, "Can't wait to meet you, little one." And then Victoria saw it, a post from that morning, a selfie of Scarlett, hand on her still flat stomach, standing in front of a familiar backdrop, her office building. The caption read, "Morning sickness is worth it for you, baby. Visiting Daddy's office today? Blessed and miracle in progress." Victoria's hands shook as she scrolled through the comments, some supportive, some questioning. But one stood out. "Isn't he married?" Scarlett's response, "It's complicated, but love always finds a way." The audacity of it took Victoria's breath away. She screenshotted everything, her business instincts overriding her emotional response. Document everything. Create a paper trail. Her phone buzzed. A text from Madison. Check your email now. Victoria opened her laptop again, navigating to her business email. The subject line made her blood run cold. Henderson Industries contract concerns. The email was from Bob Henderson himself, CEO of the company that could make or break her firm's future. Dear Victoria, it has come to our attention through social media channels that there may be some personal instability affecting your company's leadership. While we sympathize with whatever difficulties you may be facing, Henderson Industries must consider the reputation and stability of our partners. We're postponing our final decision on the contract until these matters are resolved. I hope you understand. Best regards, Bob. Victoria read it twice, her mind racing. Scarlett had tagged her business account in those Instagram posts. Of course, it would get back to her clients. Of course, it would affect her professionally. The baby kicked hard, as if sensing her distress. Victoria rubbed her belly absently, trying to think. She'd built her marketing firm from nothing, working 80-hour weeks, sacrificing so much to create something lasting. And now it was being threatened by her husband's indiscretion and his secretary's social media campaign. She pulled up her phone again, found Jackson's number. He answered on the second ring. Vic, thank God, Have you seen her Instagram? Silence then. What Instagram? Baby Hamilton Journey. Your girlfriend is documenting her pregnancy for the world to see. She's tagging my business. I just lost the Henderson Industries contract. She's not my girlfriend, Jackson's voice was strained, and I had no idea. I'll talk to her, make her take it down. You'll do no such thing. Victoria's voice was steel. You'll communicate with her only through lawyers from now on. Any contact between you two will only fuel her fantasy. Fantasy? Vic, what if she's really pregnant? Then we'll deal with that when it's proven. But right now, she's waging a social media war, and I need to protect what I've built. What we've built, Jackson corrected. Your company is half mine, remember? The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. In her anger and hurt, she'd forgotten the legal realities. Illinois was a marital property state. Her company, her life's work, was indeed half his. Are you threatening me? She asked quietly. No, God, no. I'm trying to figure out how to fix this, how to make it right. You can't. Victoria ended the call before he could respond. She sat back in her chair, mind spinning. The financial betrayal, the personal betrayal, and now her business was under attack. At 8 months pregnant, when she should be nesting and preparing for her baby, she was instead preparing for war. Her laptop dinged. A new email, this one from an address she didn't recognize. Subject, you should know the truth. Victoria hesitated, then clicked open. Mrs. Hamilton, you don't know me, but I know Scarlett Reeves. She did the same thing to my husband in Miami 2 years ago. Said she was pregnant, caused chaos in our marriage, demanded money. When we insisted on a paternity test, she disappeared overnight. I still have the investigator's report, if you're interested. Don't let her fool you like she fooled us. A friend who understands. Victoria stared at the screen, heart pounding. She forwarded the email to Frank immediately, then to her lawyer, then saved it in 3 different places. The baby moved again, a slow roll that made her gasp. I know, little one, she whispered. Mommy's stressed, but I'm going to protect us, I promise. She pulled up her company's social media accounts, fingers flying across the keyboard. Time to play defense. Time to control the narrative. She was Victoria Hamilton, founder and CEO of Hamilton Marketing Solutions. She'd built a successful company from scratch. She'd survived her mother's death, survived being overlooked and underestimated her whole career. She could survive this too. Her phone rang. Frank. Got your email, he said without preamble. Bill just called me back. Scarlett Reeves left Miami PD custody 2 years ago. No charges filed, but there was an investigation. Into what? Fraud, extortion, and get this, false pregnancy claims. Victoria closed her eyes, feeling something she hadn't felt since Saturday night. Hope. 2 weeks had passed since the birthday ambush, and Victoria had thrown herself into damage control mode. Despite the stress, her company had managed to retain most of its clients. though Henderson Industries remained uncommitted. She'd hired the best divorce attorney in Chicago and started documenting everything. But Scarlett Reeves had escalated her campaign. The Instagram account now boasted over 3,000 followers. Daily posts showed Scarlett's journey, morning sickness selfies, photos of prenatal vitamins, even a gender reveal announcement claiming it was a boy. The comments section had become a battlefield between those calling her a homewrecker and those praising her bravery in fighting for her child. Victoria stood in her office's private bathroom, splashing cold water on her face. The baby had been restless all morning, responding to her elevated stress levels. She'd been up since 4 a.m., unable to sleep, scrolling through the latest posts. A knock on her office door made her look up. "Come in." Her assistant, Paula, entered with a concerned expression. "Mrs. Hamilton, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent." Victoria's stomach dropped. She knew before Paula said the name. Scarlett Reeves. "Tell her—" Victoria started, then stopped. Running would only make her look weak. "Actually, send her in. But stay close, Paula, and have security on standby." Paula nodded and left. Victoria moved behind her desk, grateful for the barrier it provided. She placed her hands flat on the surface, grounding herself. The door opened, and Scarlett Reeves walked in like she owned the place. She wore a flowing dress that emphasized what appeared to be a small bump. Her makeup was perfect, her hair styled in loose waves. She looked like she'd stepped out of a maternity magazine spread. "Victoria," she said, as if they were old friends. "Thank you for seeing me." "You have 2 minutes," Victoria replied, not offering her a seat. Scarlett sat anyway, placing a protective hand over her belly. The gesture looked practiced, performative. "I wanted to apologize for how I handled things at your birthday," Scarlett began. "It wasn't fair to you. You're innocent in all this." 1 minute 45 seconds. Scarlett's perfectly composed mask slipped slightly. "I know you hate me. I understand. But we're going to be in each other's lives forever now. Our children will be siblings. Don't you think we should try to find some common ground?" "Our children," Victoria repeated slowly, "will be nothing to each other if that baby you claim to carry isn't Jackson's, which, given your history in Miami and Dallas, seems highly unlikely." Now the mask fell completely. "I don't know what you think you know. I know you've run this scam before. I know you target married lawyers. I know you fake pregnancies for attention and money." Victoria pulled out a folder, Frank's investigation file. "I have statements from your previous victims, police reports, medical records showing you've never been pregnant in your life." But Scarlett stood abruptly. "Those are lies. Jackson and I are having a baby, and there's nothing you can do about it." "We'll see about that when the paternity test comes back." "I'm not taking any test that could harm my baby." "How convenient." Victoria stood as well, her 8.5-month pregnant frame dwarfing Scarlett's possibly fake bump. "But the court will order one after the baby is born. If there is a baby." Scarlett's face flushed. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? The successful businesswoman, the perfect wife. But you couldn't keep your husband satisfied. You couldn't give him what he needed." Victoria felt her carefully maintained control crack. And what exactly did he need? A 27-year-old secretary who stalks married men? "Love," Scarlett shouted. "He needed someone who puts him first, not her company. Someone who makes him feel like a man, not a sperm donor for her perfect life plan." "Get out." Victoria's voice was dangerously quiet. "Get out of my office before I call security." "I'm not leaving until we settle this like adults." Scarlett moved closer, invading Victoria's space. "I'm carrying Jackson's baby whether you like it or not, and he's going to choose us. He already has. He just hasn't told you yet." That's when Scarlett made her crucial mistake. She reached for Victoria's desk, sweeping her arm across it. Files scattered. Picture frames crashed to the floor. The ultrasound photo of Victoria's baby fluttered like a dying bird. And the crystal water pitcher, a gift from a client, tipped precariously on the edge. Victoria moved on instinct, catching the pitcher before it could fall. But instead of setting it down, she found herself holding it, staring at the clear liquid inside. Time seemed to slow. Scarlett smirked. "Go ahead, show everyone who you really are. Show them the violent, jealous wife who, Victoria upended the entire pitcher over Scarlett's head. The water cascaded down in what felt like slow motion, drenching Scarlett's perfect hair, running in rivers down her designer dress, pooling on the expensive carpet. "You look thirsty," Victoria said calmly, setting the empty pitcher back on her desk, carrying all those lies. Scarlett stood frozen, water dripping from her chin, her mascara running in black streams. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Paula!" Victoria called. Her assistant appeared instantly, taking in the scene with wide eyes. Behind her stood two security guards. "Ms. Reeves was just leaving," Victoria said pleasantly. "Could you please escort her out? And maybe offer her some paper towels for the ride home?" You, Scarlett sputtered, wiping water from her eyes. "You'll pay for this! I'll sue you for assault! You'll do nothing," Victoria interrupted, "because what happened here was an accident. I was simply moving my water pitcher, and you happened to be standing too close. Isn't that right, Paula?" Paula, bless her, didn't miss a beat. "Absolutely, Mrs. Hamilton. Very clumsy of Ms. Reeves to bump into your desk like that." "This isn't over," Scarlett shrieked as security guided her toward the door. "Jackson will hear about this. Everyone will hear about this." "I'm counting on it," Victoria said softly. The door closed behind them, leaving Victoria alone in her water-spotted office. She sank into her chair, hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Her phone buzzed immediately. The office security footage was digital, accessible to the security team's supervisors. Word would spread quickly. Sure enough, within minutes, her phone lit up with texts. Madison, "Did you just baptize that witch?" Sarah, "Security guard just told me what happened. I've never been prouder to be your sister-in-law." Frank, "Heard there was an incident. You okay?" "Also, Bill says nice aim." But it was the call from an unknown number that made Victoria's heart skip. She answered cautiously. "Victoria Hamilton?" The voice was professional, businesslike. "This is Bob Henderson." Her stomach dropped. The CEO of Henderson Industries. He'd heard already. Her career was over. "Mr. Henderson, I can explain." "No need." Was that amusement in his voice? "My head of security just forwarded me something interesting. Seems someone was recording the whole thing on their phone from the hallway. Posted it on Twitter 10 minutes ago." Victoria's blood ran cold. The caption says, "CEO stands up to husband's crazy mistress." Queen. It already has 50,000 views. "Mr. Henderson, I'm so sorry. This is completely unprofessional." "Unprofessional?" He laughed outright now. "Ms. Hamilton, do you know what my biggest concern was about working with your firm? I thought you might be too soft, too nice, too willing to roll over when things get tough." Victoria waited, hardly breathing. But a woman who can handle a crisis with that much composure, who can defend herself without losing her cool, that's exactly the kind of partner Henderson Industries needs. He paused. "The contract is yours if you still want it." Yes, absolutely." "Excellent. Oh, and Victoria, my wife wants to know if you're free for lunch tomorrow. She's 8 months pregnant too, and she says you're her new hero." The call ended, leaving Victoria stunned. She pulled up Twitter on her computer, searching for the video. There it was. Someone had indeed filmed from the hallway. The angle showed Scarlett throwing her tantrum, destroying Victoria's desk, getting in her face. And then, the water pour. Calm, deliberate, almost elegant. The comments were overwhelming. "This is how you handle a homewrecker. Pregnant CEO energy is unmatched. Notice how she waited until the girl touched her stuff. Self-defense. Team Victoria all the way." But one comment made her pause. "I'm the security guard who escorted her out." The bump washed right off. It was a prosthetic. Victoria leaned back in her chair, one hand on her very real baby bump. Frank had been right. It was all a scam. And now, thanks to a picture of water and social media, the truth was starting to surface. Her phone rang. Jackson. She let it go to voicemail. Then, after a moment's thought, she pulled up her company's Twitter account. "Thank you for all the support," she typed. "Just a reminder that pregnancy hormones and boardroom dramatics don't mix well. Stay hydrated, everyone. Hush, water your plants, had even the fake ones. She hit send, then called her lawyer. Time to end this once and for all. The video had gone viral overnight. By morning, hashtag pregnant wife revenge was trending nationally, and Victoria's picture pour had been remixed into dozens of memes. But while the internet celebrated, the real investigation was happening behind the scenes. Frank Hamilton sat in a downtown diner across from his old partner, Bill Morrison, and a woman in her 40s who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. This is Jennifer Walsh, Bill said by way of introduction. She was the lead investigator on the Miami case. Jennifer slid a thick folder across the table. Scarlett Marie Reeves, also went by Scarlett Rivers in Dallas, Scarlett Reed in Miami. Same MO every time, targets married lawyers at mid-sized firms, claims pregnancy after a few months, creates social media pressure, then disappears when faced with legal action. Frank opened the folder, his expression darkening as he read. 3 cities, 3 law firms, 3 fake pregnancies? That we know of. Jennifer sipped her coffee. She's smart, never takes it far enough for criminal charges, always disappears before court-ordered paternity tests, usually walks away with a settlement, hush money from firms that want to avoid scandal. But she's escalating, Frank observed. The social media campaign, showing up at family events. She's never gone this far before. No, Jennifer agreed, which means she's either desperate or she's found a mark she thinks is worth the risk. Frank's phone buzzed. A text from his tech-savvy nephew, Owen. Uncle F, check your email. Found something interesting? He excused himself, stepping outside to call Owen. What did you find? So I did some digging into that Instagram account, Owen said, excitement in his voice. The metadata on those ultrasound photos? They're stock images from a medical website, just cropped and filtered. You're sure? Positive, but here's the kicker. I found her real Instagram, private account under her middle name. Want to guess what she posted 3 months ago? Frank waited. A vision board, pictures of luxury apartments, designer bags, vacation destinations, and right in the center, a photo of Jackson from the firm's website with hearts drawn around it. Caption says, manifesting my dreams into reality. Frank felt his blood pressure rise. Send me everything. Already done. Oh, and Uncle Frank? That fake bump in the security video, I enhanced the footage. You can literally see the adhesive edges when she moves. Meanwhile, across town, Madison Torres was conducting her own investigation. She'd taken the day off work, dedicating herself to what she called Operation Expose the Snake. She sat in her apartment, laptop open, surrounded by printouts and sticky notes. Her best friend needed ammunition, and Madison was determined to provide it. Hello, Scarlett's Instagram followers, she muttered, clicking through profiles. Let's see who you really are. Most were legitimate accounts, people drawn to the drama, picking sides in a scandal they knew nothing about. But scattered throughout were suspicious profiles, accounts with no posts, generic names, all created within the last month. Bot accounts. Scarlett was padding her follower count. Madison screenshotted everything, then noticed something else. The supportive comments, the ones defending Scarlett and attacking Victoria. Many came from these same fake accounts. She pulled up her phone, creating a Twitter thread. Thread, how a fake pregnancy scammer manufactures support using bot accounts. Let's dive in. Within an hour, her thread had thousands of retweets. Internet sleuths began contributing their own findings. Someone found Scarlett's Dallas persona. Another uncovered her Miami days. The digital house of cards was collapsing. At Patterson and Associates, the atmosphere was tense. Jackson Hamilton sat in the senior partners conference room, facing a panel that looked distinctly unhappy. This situation has become untenable, Diane Patterson said, her voice cold. The firm's reputation is being damaged by association. I understand, Jackson said quietly. I take full responsibility. Do you? Another partner, Thomas Wright, leaned forward. Because from where we sit, you've allowed a disturbed employee to harass your pregnant wife, damage our firm's standing, and create a social media circus. She's not disturbed, Jackson protested weakly. She's a con artist, Diane interrupted. We've been contacted by 2 other firms warning us about her. Apparently she's done this before you know. Jackson's face paled. What? Diane slid a tablet across the table. Miami, 2021. Dallas, 2019. Same pattern. And now Chicago, with our firm at the center of her latest scheme. I didn't know. Because you didn't want to know, Thomas said bluntly. You were enjoying the attention from a younger woman, and when it went too far, you buried your head in the sand. But that's not... Jackson stopped, unable to finish the denial. We need to discuss your future with this firm, Diane said. But first, you're going to fix this. Call Scarlett on speaker. Tell her it's over. I haven't been in contact with her since... We know you met her for coffee yesterday, Thomas interrupted. The Starbucks on Madison? Our client saw you. Jackson's shoulders slumped, caught in another lie. He pulled out his phone with trembling fingers, found Scarlett's number. The partners watched as he dialed. Jackson! Scarlett's voice was bright, hopeful. I was just thinking about you. Did you see the doctor's appointment is tomorrow? You could come. Hear the heartbeat. Scarlett, stop. Jackson's voice was firm. There is no doctor's appointment. There is no baby. Silence then. How can you say that? Our son... I know about Miami, about Dallas. I know this is what you do. The silence stretched longer this time. When Scarlett spoke again, her voice had changed, harder, colder. You seemed pretty convinced in your hotel room last week. The partners exchanged glances. Jackson's face went crimson. That was a mistake, another mistake. But it's over now. If you continue this harassment, we'll pursue legal action. Harassment? Scarlett laughed, but it sounded forced. Is that what you call it when a woman fights for her child? There is no child. Jackson's composure cracked. The ultrasounds are fake. The bump is fake. Everything about you is fake. You didn't think I was fake when you were... Jackson hung up, his hands shaking. The partners stared at him in disgust. Your hotel room? Diane asked quietly. Last week? While your wife is 8.5 months pregnant? Jackson couldn't meet their eyes. Clear out your office, Thomas said. You're suspended pending a full investigation. And Jackson, if you've exposed this firm to any liability through your continued involvement with this woman, you'll be held personally responsible. As Jackson Hamilton's career imploded, his wife sat in her doctor's office for a routine checkup, blissfully unaware of the latest betrayal. Everything looks perfect, Dr. Patricia Williams said, moving the ultrasound wand over Victoria's belly. Baby boy is measuring right on track, maybe a bit eager. He's already in position. Victoria smiled, watching her son move on the screen. He's been so active lately, I think he senses the stress. Which is why you need to take it easy, the doctor said gently. I know you're dealing with some personal challenges, but this little guy needs you calm and healthy. I'm trying, it's just... Victoria's phone buzzed. A text from Frank. Call me. Urgent. Good news. Is everything okay? Dr. Patricia Williams asked. I think it's about to be, Victoria said, feeling hope bloom in her chest for the first time in weeks. As she left the appointment, her phone rang. Frank didn't wait for pleasantries. We got her, he said simply. Jennifer Walsh sent everything. 3 cities, 3 scams, documented proof. And Owen found her real social media. She targeted Jackson specifically. Planned the whole thing. Victoria sat in her car processing this. So there's definitely no baby? No baby, never was. The security footage from your office confirms it. The bump literally washed off with the water. It was theatrical, prosthetic. Oh my God. Victoria laughed, actually laughed. I baptized her fake pregnancy. You did more than that, Frank said, pride evident in his voice. You exposed her. That video going viral forced her hand. She's getting sloppy, making mistakes. What kind of mistakes? The kind that land people in jail, Frank said. Jennifer's contact at Chicago PD is very interested in filing charges. Fraud, extortion, harassment. She crossed state lines, which makes it federal. Victoria felt dizzy with relief. Then a thought struck her. Frank, have you heard from Jackson today? A pause. No. Why? Just a feeling. He's been too quiet. I'll check on him, Frank promised. You go home and rest. You've got my grandson to think about. As Victoria drove home, She allowed herself to imagine a future without this chaos. Maybe not with Jackson. That bridge might be too damaged to rebuild, but a future where she could focus on her son, her company, her life without the shadow of Scarlett Reeves' lies. She didn't know that Jackson had just been suspended from his job. She didn't know that Scarlett was at that very moment packing her bags to flee Chicago. And she definitely didn't know that Madison's Twitter investigation was about to crack the case wide open in ways none of them expected. But for now, in this moment, Victoria Hamilton allowed herself to breathe. The truth was finally coming out. Madison Torres had pulled all-nighters in college, survived on coffee and determination through product launches, but nothing had prepared her for the adrenaline rush of systematically destroying Scarlett Reeves online. Her Twitter thread had exploded beyond anything she'd imagined. Journalists were reaching out. Other victims were coming forward. And then, at 2 in the morning, she found the smoking gun. Holy mother of... Madison stared at her screen, then immediately called Victoria. Madison, it's 2 a.m. I know, but Vic, you need to see this. I'm coming over. Is everything okay? More than okay, I found out who Scarlett really is. 20 minutes later, Madison burst into Victoria's kitchen with her laptop and a manic energy that only came from too much caffeine and righteous vindication. Scarlett Reeves isn't her real name, Madison announced, pulling up a cached webpage. It's Bethany Louise Crenshaw. And guess what Bethany did before she became Scarlett? Victoria, wrapped in her bathrobe and nursing herbal tea, leaned forward. What? She was an actress. Bit parts, commercial work, nothing major. But look at this. Madison clicked through photos. Her IMDb page, her old headshots, and the crown jewel, a commercial she did for a pregnancy test company where she played, wait for it, a woman faking pregnancy to test her boyfriend's loyalty. Victoria's jaw dropped. You're kidding. Nope. And it gets better. I found her acting coach. Lovely woman named Gladys, who's very chatty at 2 a.m. Apparently, our girl Bethany was obsessed with method acting. Liked to live her roles. Got so into character once that she convinced an entire restaurant she was British for 6 months. So this whole thing is the performance of her lifetime. Madison pulled up another screen. But here's where it gets really interesting. Remember those bot accounts supporting her? I traced the payments. She's been buying followers and engagement through a service that, drumroll please, is paid for by a credit card in the name of B. Crenshaw. Victoria set down her tea, hands shaking slightly. We need to get this to Frank, to my lawyer, to... Her phone rang, Frank's name on the screen. I'm at the hospital, he said without preamble. Jackson's here. Victoria's heart stopped. What? Is he okay? He's fine, but Scarlett's not. She's in the ER, claiming she's having a miscarriage, making a huge scene. Media's already here. Madison, who could hear everything, was already packing up her laptop. We're on our way. The drive to Chicago General was tense. Victoria's baby seemed to sense her anxiety, kicking relentlessly. Madison drove while simultaneously coordinating with her Twitter army, ready to counter whatever narrative Scarlett was about to spin. They arrived to find chaos. News vans lined the parking lot. Reporters clustered around the emergency entrance. And somewhere inside, Scarlett Reeves was giving the performance of her life. Frank met them at the entrance, his expression grim. She arrived by ambulance 40 minutes ago, claimed she was bleeding, cramping, full hysteria mode. Where's Jackson? Victoria asked. Inside, she called him, said she was losing the baby. He came running. Frank's jaw tightened. The doctors are examining her now. This is her exit strategy, Madison said suddenly. She fakes a miscarriage, gets sympathy, disappears before anyone can prove she was never pregnant. Not this time, Frank said. I've got hospital security keeping track of every move. And the doctor examining her? Old friend of mine. She knows the situation. And they settled in this waiting room, an odd tableau. The pregnant wife, the loyal best friend, and the protective father-in-law. Around them, the hospital hummed with its usual chaos, unaware of the drama unfolding in exam room 3. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, Dr. Rebecca Anderson emerged, her expression carefully neutral. Mr. Hamilton, she called. Frank stood. That's me. This is my daughter-in-law. Victoria. Dr. Anderson's eyes softened slightly as she took in Victoria's pregnant form. Perhaps we could speak privately. Anything you have to say can be said in front of them, Frank said firmly. The doctor nodded. Very well. Ms. Reeves is not experiencing a miscarriage. In fact, she's not experiencing any gynecological distress at all. Because she's not pregnant, Madison said flatly. I cannot confirm or deny a pregnancy without the patient's consent, Dr. Anderson said carefully. What I can say is that her symptoms don't align with her claimed condition. We've recommended she follow up with her regular OBGYN. The one that doesn't exist, Victoria muttered. Additionally, Dr. Anderson continued, when we asked for her insurance information, she became agitated and attempted to leave. Security is with her now. Just then they heard shouting from down the hall. Scarlett's voice, high and dramatic. You can't keep me here. I know my rights. Jackson! Jackson! Help me! Jackson appeared in the doorway looking haggard. His suit was rumpled, his tie askew. When he saw Victoria, his face crumpled. Vic, don't. Victoria held up a hand. Just don't. She called me, said she was losing the baby. What was I supposed to do? Recognize a con when you see one? Madison suggested acidly. I think we should all step outside, Dr. Anderson said diplomatically. But before anyone could move, Scarlett burst into the waiting room, security guards flanking her. She'd changed out of the hospital gown and back into her street clothes. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled, but her eyes were sharp and calculating. There you are. She focused on Jackson. Tell them about our baby. Bethany, Madison said loudly. That is your name, right? Bethany Louise Crenshaw? Scarlett froze, just for a second, but everyone saw it. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice wavered. Madison pulled out her phone showing the cached IMDb page. Actress, semi-professional con artist, currently playing the role of pregnant mistress. How's that method acting working out for you? You're insane, Scarlett said, but she was backing toward the door. Am I? Should we talk about Miami, Dallas, the other law firms, the other fake pregnancies? Madison advanced, phone extended like a weapon. It's all here. Every scam, every lie, every fake social media account you bought to support your stories. Jackson, Scarlett pleaded, reaching for him. Don't let them do this to us, to our baby. Jackson looked at her, really looked at her, for perhaps the first time. There is no baby, is there? How can you say that? Tears streamed down her face. After everything we've shared? After last week in your hotel room? Victoria made a sound like she'd been punched. Madison grabbed her arm, supporting her. Frank stepped forward. Last week? You met her last week? Jackson's accent was damning. You told me it was over, Victoria said quietly. You looked me in the eye and swore it was over. It is over, Jackson protested. I was trying to convince her to drop this whole thing, to leave us alone. By sleeping with her? Victoria's voice was deadly calm. While I'm carrying your child? I didn't. He stopped, unable to finish the lie. Scarlett saw her moment. See? He loves me. He just can't admit it because of his pregnant wife, Madison interrupted. The woman he married? The woman actually carrying his child? Stop, Scarlett screamed. Stop ruining everything. This was supposed to work. He was supposed to choose me. And there it was, the admission. Got it, said a voice from behind them. They turned to find a young man with a phone recording everything. Been live streaming since she ran out of the exam room. Already got 20,000 viewers. Turn that off. Scarlett lunged for the phone, but security held her back. Ma'am, you need to calm down, one guard said. I am calm. I'm pregnant. She stopped, seeming to realize what she'd just revealed to thousands of viewers. No symptoms, no distress, just rage at being exposed. Frank pulled out his phone, making a call. Bill, yeah, she's here. Chicago General. Might want to bring backup. You called the police? Scarlett's voice went up an octave. For what? Fraud, extortion, harassment, filing false medical claims. Frank counted on his fingers. Oh, and that hotel room meeting? Pretty sure that qualifies as prostitution since you were exchanging sexual favors for money and support. That's not Jackson. Tell them. But Jackson had sunk into a chair, head in his hands. The full weight of his choices, his lies, his stupidity, crushing him. Victoria watched it all with a strange sense of detachment. Her husband destroyed, his mistress exposed, the truth laid bare for the world to see. And inside her, their son kicked and rolled, blissfully unaware of the chaos he would be born into. "I want to go home," she said quietly. Madison immediately moved into action. "Of course, Frank, can you handle—" "Go," Frank said. "Take care of her, I'll deal with this." As they walked toward the exit, Scarlett's voice followed them. "This isn't over. You can't just destroy my life. I'll sue. I'll—" The automatic doors closed, cutting off her threats. Outside, the October air was crisp and clean. Victoria breathed deeply, one hand on her belly. "You okay?" Madison asked. "No," Victoria said honestly. "But I will be." Her phone buzzed. A text from her lawyer. "Saw the live stream. Divorce papers ready when you are. You're going to take him for everything." Victoria deleted the text without replying. Right now, she didn't want to think about lawyers or divorce or custody battles. She just wanted to go home, take a warm bath, and figure out how to explain to her son someday why his father chose a con artist over their family. But first, she had one more thing to do. She pulled up Twitter, typing quickly. "Thank you all for your support. Special shout out to those who helped expose the truth. Remember, actions have consequences, and the truth always surfaces, even if sometimes it needs a little help. Hashtag truth wins, hashtag baptism by water." Within minutes, it had thousands of likes and shares. The video of Scarlett's hospital meltdown was already trending. Victoria Hamilton had won. But as Madison drove her home through the quiet Chicago streets, she couldn't shake the feeling that some victories felt an awful lot like defeat. 3 days after the hospital incident, Scarlett Reeves, or Bethany Louise Crenshaw, sat in a Cook County interrogation room, her theatrical confidence finally shattered. Across from her sat Detective Patricia Walsh, no relation to Jennifer from Miami, who'd been assigned in what the department was calling the pregnancy scam case of the decade. "So Bethany," Detective Walsh said, flipping through a thick file, "let's go through this again. Miami, 2021, Dallas, 2019, and now Chicago. 3 cities, 3 law firms, 3 fake pregnancies. That's a pattern." "I want my lawyer," Scarlett said for the 5th time. "He's on his way. Public defender, right? Couldn't afford a real one after your accounts were frozen?" Scarlett's perfectly manicured nails dug into the metal table. In another part of the city, Jackson Hamilton sat in his childhood bedroom at Frank's house, surrounded by boxes from his cleared-out office. His father hadn't spoken to him in 2 days beyond basic necessities. A knock at the door interrupted his misery spiral. "Come in," he said listlessly. Sarah entered, still in her nursing scrubs. His younger sister looked tired but determined. "We need to talk," she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "If you're here to tell me what a piece of garbage I am, there's a waiting list. I'm here because you're my brother and I love you, even when you're being a monumental idiot." Jackson looked up, surprised. "You don't hate me?" "Oh, I'm furious with you, disappointed beyond words. But hate?" Sarah shook her head. "You're still my brother. Question is, who do you want to be going forward?" "I don't know," Jackson admitted. "I've lost everything. My job, my marriage, my reputation. My son will grow up knowing his father is a cheating loser who fell for a con artist." "Maybe," Sarah said. "Or maybe he'll know his father as someone who made terrible mistakes but worked to earn redemption. Your choice." "How? How do I fix any of this?" "Start by being honest, really honest, with yourself first." Jackson was quiet for a long moment. "I was flattered," he finally said. "This beautiful younger woman hanging on my every word, making me feel important. Victoria was so focused on the baby, on her company, I felt invisible. So instead of communicating like an adult, you had an affair. It wasn't, it was just once, the first time, but not the last." Jackson's shame was answer enough. "She played you," Sarah said gently, "used your ego and insecurity against you. That doesn't excuse your choices, but maybe understanding it helps you not make the same mistakes again." Meanwhile, at Victoria's house, An unexpected summit was taking place. Diane Patterson sat in the living room, having arrived unannounced with a bottle of non-alcoholic champagne and an apology. "I owe you an explanation," the senior partner said, settling into the couch across from Victoria. "About Jackson. About all of this." Victoria, exhausted and 9 months pregnant, waited silently. "I've been senior partner for 15 years, Diane continued. "I've seen every type of scandal you can imagine. But I've never seen someone throw away so much for so little. Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "No, it's supposed to explain why the firm is prepared to offer you a settlement." Victoria straightened. "A settlement?" "Jackson's actions expose the firm to liability. He conducted this affair on company property, using company resources. Ms. Reeves was able to access confidential information through him. We bear some responsibility." "I'm not going to sue the firm, Diane." "I know, which is why we want to make this right." Diane pulled out a folder. Full ownership of all marital assets related to Jackson's partnership. His profit sharing, his equity, everything. Plus a substantial sum for damages. Victoria stared at the number on the paper. It was significant. "This feels like a bribe." "It's justice," Diane corrected. "An insurance that you and your son are taken care of. Jackson's finished in law, Victoria. No firm will touch him after this. Consider it securing your child's future." Before Victoria could respond, her phone buzzed. Gloria Allred's name appeared on the screen. "I should take this," Victoria said. "Victoria!" Gloria's voice was triumphant. "Have you seen the news?" "What news?" "Bethany Crenshaw was just denied bail. Turns out she's wanted in Nevada too. And the FBI is now involved because she crossed state lines in commission of fraud. This is huge." Victoria felt a savage satisfaction. "Good. I'm heading to the courthouse now. Want to make a statement?" "No," Victoria said firmly. "I'm done being part of this circus. I just want to move forward." After hanging up, she looked at Diane. "I'll have my lawyer review the settlement. But I want one more thing. Name it. A letter of recommendation. For when I'm ready to take Hamilton Marketing Solutions national. Your firm's endorsement would open doors." Diane smiled, the first genuine smile Victoria had seen from her mom. "Done, Nikasjim. You know, in another life, you would have made an excellent lawyer. In this life, I make excellent strategic decisions," Victoria replied. "And my next one is rebuilding without Jackson." That evening, Frank appeared at Victoria's door with Chinese takeout and a worn leather photo album. "Thought you might be hungry," he said, "and thought maybe we could talk." They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where everything had fallen apart weeks ago. Frank opened the album, revealing photos of a younger Jackson, of Helen, of family moments frozen in time. "I failed him somewhere," Frank said quietly. "His mother dying when he was in law school. Maybe I don't know, didn't teach him properly about consequences, about honor." "This isn't your fault, Frank. Isn't it? I'm a detective. Was a detective. I should have seen the signs." Victoria reached across the table, covering his weathered hand with hers. "You did see the signs. You investigated Scarlett before anyone else suspected. You protected me." Frank turned his hand over, squeezing hers gently. "You're the daughter Helen always wanted. She would have been so proud of how you've handled this." "I don't feel very proud. I feel tired and angry. All normal. But you're still standing, still fighting, still protecting that baby." As if in response, the baby kicked hard enough to make Victoria gasp. "Active little guy," Frank said with a small smile. "His due date's in 2 weeks. I'm terrified, Frank. How do I do this alone?" "You won't be alone. You'll have Sarah and me. Madison, your family of choice," he paused. "And maybe someday when he's earned it, Jackson too." "I can't think about that now." "Don't have to. Just focus on today. Tomorrow, one step at a time." Later that night, Victoria lay in bed, scrolling through her phone. The internet had moved on to new scandals, new dramas. Baby Hamilton's journey had been deleted. Scarlett's digital footprint scrubbed by court order. A text from Madison appeared. "Check your email. You'll want to see this." Victoria opened her email to find a message from an unexpected sender, the woman who'd warned her about Scarlett weeks ago. Dear Victoria, I wanted to reach out now that I see justice is being served. I'm Jennifer Holbrook, Scarlett's Miami victim. Watching your strength through this has inspired me to finally speak publicly about my experience. My husband and I divorced because of her lies, but seeing how you handled everything with grace, humor, and that pitcher of water showed me I gave her too much power. I'm flying to Chicago to testify at her trial. Perhaps we could meet for coffee? I think you'd find it healing to know you're not alone. Also, my ex-husband sends his apologies to your husband. Maybe they can start a support group for idiots who fell for the same con. Wishing you peace and strength, Jennifer. Victoria read it twice, feeling something shift inside her chest. Not quite forgiveness, not quite closure, but something like hope. Her phone rang, Jackson's ringtone. She'd been declining his calls for days, but something made her answer this time. Vic? His voice was rough, like he'd been crying. I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need to tell you something. You have 2 minutes. I'm getting help. Real help. Therapy. Sarah found someone who specializes in people who've destroyed their lives through ego and stupidity. Despite everything, Victoria almost smiled at his self-assessment. I'm also testifying, he continued, against Scarlett, Bethany, whatever her name is. The FBI needs my testimony about the money she extorted. The $50,000, it went to her, not baby expenses. I have proof. Good, Victoria said simply. And Vic, I know I have no right to ask, but when he's born, our son, would you let me? We'll see, Victoria said. One day at a time, Jackson. Earn the right to be his father. I will, he said fiercely. I swear I will. After hanging up, Victoria placed both hands on her belly. Your daddy's an idiot, she told her son. But maybe, just maybe, he's a redeemable idiot. The baby kicked in response, and Victoria chose to take that as agreement. The law firm of Patterson and Associates had seen its share of dramatic events over the years, but nothing quite compared to the scene unfolding at their annual October gala. The Palmer House Hilton's grand ballroom glittered with Chicago's legal elite, unaware they were about to witness the final act of the city's most sensational scandal. Gloria Allred stood at the podium, every inch the legendary attorney in her crimson power suit. Beside her, Frank Hamilton looked distinguished in his rarely worn formal attire, a tablet in his hands loaded with enough evidence to bury several careers. Ladies and gentlemen, Gloria began, her voice commanding instant attention. Tonight, I stand before you not just as an attorney, but as an advocate for truth. For too long, predators have hidden behind facades of respectability. Tonight, we expose one such predator. In the audience, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Diane Patterson sat at the firm's head table, her expression unreadable. At the back of the room, a junior associate named Marcus Thompson held up his phone, already live streaming. Y'all, this is about to be epic, he whispered to his TikTok followers. The legendary Gloria Allred is about to destroy someone at my firm's gala. Gloria continued, 3 cities, 3 law firms, 3 fabricated pregnancies, and countless lives destroyed by one woman's pathological need for attention and money. Frank stepped forward, connecting his tablet to the projection system. The massive screens behind them lit up with evidence, court documents, social media screenshots, financial records. Bethany Louise Crenshaw, Gloria announced, as Scarlett's various personas appeared on screen. Also known as Scarlett Reeves, Scarlett Rivers, and Scarlett Reed, a woman who weaponized the miracle of pregnancy for personal gain. In her hotel room across town, Scarlett watched the live stream on her phone, her face draining of color. Her court-appointed attorney sat beside her, shaking his head. They can't do this, she protested. It's defamation. It's evidence that will be presented at your trial anyway, her lawyer interrupted. And you're the one who made this public with your Instagram campaign. Back at the delay, Frank had taken the microphone. As a former detective, and more importantly, as the father of a man who was deceived by this woman, I feel compelled to share what our investigation uncovered. The screen showed a timeline of Scarlett's cons, each more elaborate than the last. Miami, where she'd extracted $30,000 from a junior partner. Dallas, where she'd nearly destroyed a marriage before disappearing. And now Chicago, where she'd made a crucial mistake, targeting someone with resources and determination to fight back. But tonight isn't just about exposing a con artist, Gloria interjected, retaking control. It's about recognizing strength in the face of deception. Victoria Hamilton, a woman 8 months pregnant when this scandal broke, didn't crumble. She didn't hide. She stood up, fought back, and in doing so, inspired victims in 3 states to come forward. The crowd turned, looking for Victoria, but she wasn't there. She was at home, in early labor, watching the live stream between contractions while Madison held her hand. "Oh my gosh," Victoria gasped, not sure if it was from pain or from watching her father-in-law systematically destroy Scarlett on live television. "Breathe," Madison coached. "Do you want me to turn it off?" "Are you kidding? This is better than an epidural." At the gala, Frank clicked to the next slide, the infamous water pitcher video. "This moment," he said as the room watched Victoria calmly pour water over Scarlett's head, became a rallying cry for everyone who's ever wanted to stand up to a manipulator. My daughter-in-law's grace under pressure exposed the truth in a way no investigation could. "That's my best friend," someone shouted from the audience. The crowd turned to see Sarah Hamilton, still in her hospital scrubs, having rushed from her shift. "That's my sister-in-law, and she's in labor right now, bringing my nephew into the world while you all sit here gossiping." The revelation sent a ripple of excitement through the crowd. Marcus Thompson's live stream viewer count jumped to over 100,000. Gloria smiled. "Then let's make this quick, shall we? Frank, the final evidence?" Frank pulled up a series of financial documents. "The $50,000 Jackson Hamilton withdrew? We traced it. Ms. Crenshaw used it to purchase a car, designer clothing, and—" He paused for effect. "Acting classes, because apparently she felt her performance needed work." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. "But here's the truly damning evidence," Gloria said. 3 hours ago, Bethany Crenshaw attempted to flee Chicago. She was arrested at O'Hare Airport with a ticket to Costa Rica, a country with no extradition treaty with the United States. The screen showed booking photos, Scarlett without her perfect makeup, without her designer clothes, looking like what she was, a criminal caught in the act. At that moment, Marcus Thompson noticed something. "Oh, snap," he told his viewers. "Jackson Hamilton just walked in." Indeed, Jackson stood at the ballroom entrance, looking haggard but determined. He walked straight to the podium, ignoring the whispers and stares. "I know I'm not welcome here," he said into the microphone. "I know I've disgraced myself, my firm, and most importantly, my family. But I need to say this publicly." Gloria stepped aside, allowing him to speak. "I was a fool, a vain, selfish fool who fell for the oldest con in the book because it flattered my ego." His voice cracked. "I destroyed my marriage, hurt the best woman I've ever known, and missed the most important months of my son's development because I was weak." In her hospital room, Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. "That idiot," she whispered. "But I'm here to take responsibility," Jackson continued. "I provided the FBI with everything, every text, every meeting, every penny that went to this woman's scam. And I'll testify at her trial no matter what it costs me personally." He looked directly into Marcus Thompson's phone camera. "Victoria, if you're watching, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but our son deserves a father who owns his mistakes. I'm going to spend every day trying to be that man." The ballroom was silent. Then from somewhere in the crowd came slow clapping. It spread not for Jackson, he didn't deserve applause, but for the acknowledgement that truth finally was prevailing. "Thank you, Mr. Hamilton," Gloria said, gently moving him aside. "Now for the grand finale." The screens lit up with a new image, a legal document. 1 hour ago, Gloria announced, Bethany Louise Crenshaw was formally charged with wire fraud, extortion, and interstate commerce violations. The federal prosecutor is seeking 20 years. The crowd erupted. At the hospital, Madison whooped while Victoria breathed through another contraction. "But wait," Gloria said, raising her hand for silence. "There's more." A new face appeared on the screen. A woman in her 40s with kind eyes and steel in her spine. This is Jennifer Holbrook, Scarlett's first known victim. She started a foundation for those affected by pregnancy fraud. And their first act? ensuring that Victoria Hamilton's son enters this world with a full college fund, courtesy of donations from victims who want to turn their pain into someone else's hope. Victoria sobbed outright now, overwhelmed by hormones and emotion and the strange beauty of strangers' kindness. In conclusion, Gloria said, let this be a lesson. In the age of social media, lies travel fast. But truth? Truth travels faster when good people stand together. Thank you, Chicago. Thank you, Frank Hamilton. And congratulations, Victoria, on your impending arrival. The live stream ended with thunderous applause at the gala and Victoria's water breaking at home. Time to go, Madison said, grabbing the hospital bag. Your son has excellent timing. As they rushed to the hospital, Victoria's phone lit up with messages. Support from strangers, love from friends, even a text from Diane Patterson. Proud to recommend you. Now go have that baby. But it was the message from Frank that made her smile through the pain. Helen would be so proud. We're all waiting at the hospital, even the idiot. 5 hours later, as Halloween gave way to November 1st, Samuel Francis Hamilton entered the world. 7 pounds, 12 ounces of perfect, screaming proof that life goes on, even after betrayal, even after public humiliation, even after everything falls apart. Frank was the first to hold him after Victoria and the medical staff. Hello, little man, he whispered. Welcome to our perfectly imperfect family. Sarah cooed over her nephew while Madison documented everything. And in the corner, allowed in at Victoria's exhausted nod, Jackson stood watching the son he'd almost lost to his own stupidity. He's perfect, Jackson said softly. He is, Victoria agreed, and he's going to know the truth about everything. Age appropriately, of course, but no lies, not ever. No lies, Jackson agreed, I promise. As if in response to all the drama he'd been born into, baby Samuel yawned, stretched, and promptly fell asleep. Smart kid, Madison observed, already over the drama. And in that moment, in that room full of complicated love and tentative hope, the Hamilton family began the hard work of rebuilding. Not the same as before, that was impossible. But maybe, just maybe, something stronger. Outside, Chicago churned on, already moving to the next scandal. But inside room 415 of Chicago General, a new story was beginning. One with no lies, no fake bumps, no Instagram campaigns, just truth and love, and the hope that sometimes that's enough. 6 months later, the federal courthouse in downtown Chicago buzzed with anticipation. The case of United States v. Bethany Louise Crenshaw had become the most watched trial of the year, spawning podcasts, think pieces, and even a Netflix documentary in production. Victoria Hamilton walked through the courthouse doors with quiet confidence. The woman who entered was transformed from the heavily pregnant victim of 6 months ago. Her business suit was impeccable, her stride purposeful. In her arms, baby Samuel gurgled contentedly, dressed in a tiny outfit that read Future CEO. You didn't have to bring him, Jackson said, meeting her at security. He'd been there since dawn, preparing his testimony. The nanny had an emergency and Madison's in New York, Victoria replied. Besides, he's a pretty good judge of character. Might as well start his education early. It was a small joke, but Jackson smiled like she'd given him a gift. These tiny moments of normalcy were precious now, hard-won through months of therapy and careful co-parenting. Inside the courtroom, the gallery was packed. Jennifer Holbrook sat in the front row alongside victims from Dallas and Miami. Frank Hamilton was already seated at the prosecution's table, having been called as an expert witness. Gloria Allred had a prime spot, ready to provide commentary for the media circus outside, and at the defendant's table sat Bethany Louise Crenshaw, a.k.a. Scarlett Reeves. 6 months in federal custody had stripped away her polish. Gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup. In their place sat a woman in an orange jumpsuit, her roots showing, the theatrical confidence replaced by something harder and meaner. All rise, the bailiff announced, the Honorable Judge Patricia Kemp presiding. Judge Kemp, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, took her seat. Are we ready to proceed with closing arguments? The federal prosecutor, a sharp young woman named Amanda Torres, no relation to Madison, stood. Yes, Your Honor. Proceed. Amanda Torres commanded the courtroom as she laid out the government's case. 3 states, 5 victims that they knew of, over $200,000 in fraud, a clear pattern of predatory behavior targeting married men in positions of power. Ms. Crenshaw didn't just lie, she said, addressing the jury. She weaponized the deepest hopes and fears of families. She perverted the miracle of pregnancy into a tool for extortion, and when caught, she attempted to flee the country rather than face justice. She clicked through evidence on the courtroom screens, the fake ultrasounds, the purchased pregnancy tests, the social media manipulation, and finally the security footage from Victoria's office, the fake bump literally washing away. This is not a crime of passion, Amanda continued. This is calculated, repeated, intentional fraud. The defendant is a predator who deserves the full weight of federal justice. The defense attorney, looking resigned to his fate, gave a half-hearted closing about mental illness and childhood trauma. The jury looked unmoved. After closing arguments, court recessed for lunch. Victoria found herself in the courthouse cafe, Samuel sleeping in his carrier while she picked at a salad. "Mind if I sit?" Jennifer Holbrook asked. "Please," Victoria gestured to the empty chair. "He's beautiful," Jennifer said, smiling at Samuel. "My daughter is 3 now, born 2 years after Scarlett tried to convince my ex-husband she was carrying his twins." "Twins?" Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Oh yes, she was nothing if not ambitious in Miami." Jennifer sipped her coffee. "Thank you, by the way." "For what?" "For fighting back, for that pitcher of water, for showing me and the others that we didn't have to be victims forever." They sat in comfortable silence, two women bonded by the strangest of circumstances. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said eventually. "Do you ever forgive him, your ex?" Jennifer considered this. "I forgave him for my own peace of mind. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean trusting again. We co-parent successfully, but that's all." "Jackson's trying so hard," Victoria admitted. "Therapy twice a week, parenting classes. He even joined a support group for men who have been victims of romance scams. But I can't forget him meeting her at that hotel while I was 8 months pregnant, even after he knew she was lying." Jennifer reached across the table, squeezing Victoria's hand. "Healing isn't linear. Take your time. Your son needs a healthy mother more than he needs married parents." Court reconvened at 2 p.m. for the moment everyone had been waiting for: victim impact statements. Jennifer went first, her voice steady as she described the destruction of her marriage. The humiliation of discovering the woman her husband claimed to have impregnated had never even been pregnant. The Dallas victim, a quiet man named Robert Mitchell, spoke about the $50,000 he'd borrowed from his parents to pay Scarlett's medical bills. His parents still hadn't forgiven him. Then it was Victoria's turn. She stood, Samuel in her arms, and approached the podium. The baby, as if sensing the moment's importance, remained perfectly quiet. "Your Honor," Victoria began, "I'm not here to talk about what Bethany Crenshaw took from me. I'm here to talk about what she didn't manage to take." She adjusted Samuel on her hip, drawing strength from his warm weight. "She didn't take my business, though she tried. Hamilton Marketing Solutions just signed its largest client ever. She didn't take my family, though she tried. My father-in-law's investigation helped expose her, and his support never wavered. She didn't take my friends, my dignity, or my ability to trust in good people." Victoria looked directly at Scarlett for the first time since the hospital incident. "What she did take was my husband's integrity, our savings meant for this baby, and 7 years of marriage. But here's what I learned, and those things were already broken if they could be stolen so easily." In the gallery, Jackson lowered his head. "My son will grow up knowing the truth about how he came to be born in the middle of a scandal. But he'll also know that truth wins, that women support each other, that his grandfather is a hero who protects his family, that his mother built an empire while 8 months pregnant and under attack." Samuel chose that moment to coo loudly, drawing gentle laughter from the gallery. "And yes, he'll know his father made terrible choices, but he'll also see a man working every day to earn redemption. Because that's what we do. We face truth, we accept consequences, and we do better." She shifted Samuel to her other hip. "Bethany Crenshaw is a predator who profits from pain. She creates chaos and feeds on families' destruction. I'm asking the court to ensure she can't do this to another family, to another woman, to another baby who deserves to come into this world surrounded by truth and love, not lies and manipulation. Victoria returned to her seat amid complete silence. Then Judge Kemp spoke. Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. The court will take a brief recess before sentencing. At 20 minutes later, they reconvened. Bethany Crenshaw stood as Judge Kemp delivered her verdict. Ms. Crenshaw, you have been found guilty on all counts. The pattern of behavior demonstrated here shows a callous disregard for the families you've destroyed. You weaponize pregnancy, a sacred state, for profit and attention. Judge Kemp's voice hardened. This court sentences you to 15 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years probation. You are ordered to pay full restitution to all victims. Furthermore, you are prohibited from using social media or creating any online presence for the duration of your sentence and probation. Scarlett swayed on her feet. 15 years, she whispered. Your systematic exploitation of multiple victims across state lines warrants significant punishment, Judge Kemp continued. Perhaps this time will allow you to reflect on the pain you've caused and emerge as someone who contributes to society rather than preying on it. But I'm pregnant, Scarlett suddenly screamed. I'm really pregnant this time. You can't send a pregnant woman to prison. The courtroom erupted. Victoria instinctively held Samuel closer. Judge Kemp banged her gavel. Order, Ms. Crenshaw, you will submit to immediate medical examination. If you are pregnant, appropriate accommodations will be made. If this is another fabrication, perjury charges will be added to your sentence. As marshals led Scarlett away, still screaming about her baby, Frank appeared at Victoria's side. Plot twist, he said dryly. She's lying, Victoria said with certainty. It's her final performance. Sure enough, 3 hours later, news broke that medical examination had revealed no pregnancy. Bethany Crenshaw had played her last card and lost. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed. Gloria Allred gave statements about justice and women's strength. The prosecutor announced this case would set precedent for pregnancy fraud prosecution nationwide. But Victoria slipped out a side door with Samuel, Frank, and surprisingly Jackson. Thank you, Jackson said quietly as they reached her car, for what you said in there about redemption. I meant it, Victoria replied, buckling Samuel into his car seat. But Jackson, redemption isn't a destination. It's a daily choice. I know. He looked at his son, sleeping peacefully despite the chaos of the day. Would Tuesday still work for my visit? Tuesday works, Victoria confirmed. He's starting to recognize you. That's good. It was more than Jackson had dared hope for 6 months ago. He'd take it. As Victoria drove home, Samuel began to fuss. She reached back, letting him grip her finger. That's right, baby boy, she said softly. We won. Mommy and Grandpa Frank and Aunt Madison and Aunt Sarah and all those strong people who stood up for truth, we won. In the rearview mirror, she caught sight of the courthouse growing smaller. Somewhere inside, Bethany Louise Crenshaw was beginning her 15-year sentence. The woman who'd walked into Victoria's life with lies and drama would spend the next decade and a half in a federal cell. It was over. Finally, truly over. Victoria Hamilton smiled, turned up the radio, and drove her son home to the life they were building on foundations of truth. 1 year later, Victoria Hamilton stood before a packed auditorium at the Chicago Convention Center. Behind her, a massive screen displayed the words, Hamilton Marketing Solutions, from scandal to success. The irony wasn't lost on her. The woman who'd been nearly destroyed by a public relations nightmare had turned it into a masterclass in crisis management. The question I'm asked most often, Victoria said, commanding the attention of 500 business leaders, is how do you rebuild after public humiliation? How do you turn the worst moment of your life into your greatest professional asset? In the front row, Madison Torres beamed with pride. She now served as Chief Operating Officer of Hamilton Marketing Solutions, which had expanded to offices in New York, Los Angeles, and Miami. The company that had almost lost everything now specialized in crisis management and reputation rehabilitation. The answer is simple, but not easy, Victoria continued. You own your story before someone else tells it for you. She clicked to the next slide. The infamous water pitcher video. This moment has been viewed over 50 million times. It became a meme, a rallying cry, a symbol. But for me, it was the moment I stopped being a victim and started being a victor. Gentle laughter rippled through the audience. Victoria had learned to embrace the humor in her situation. The bronzed water pitcher now sat in the lobby of their main office, a conversation starter, and a reminder that sometimes the best response to lies is a calm, measured action that speaks louder than words. "Today, I want to introduce you to someone special," Victoria said. "My business partner, my co-parent, and proof that redemption is possible when you do the work. Jackson Hamilton." Jackson walked onto the stage looking healthier than he had in years. 18 months of therapy, parenting classes, and genuine accountability had transformed him. He no longer practiced law. That bridge was permanently burned. But he'd found new purpose as Hamilton Marketing's Director of Legal Affairs and, more importantly, as an advocate for men who'd been victims of romance scams. "Thank you, Victoria," he said, taking the podium. "I know many of you know our story, know my failures. But I'm here today because Victoria gave me something I didn't deserve. A second chance to be a father and a partner, though no longer a husband." The audience leaned in, intrigued by this unusual dynamic. "We divorced," Jackson said simply. "It was the right decision. Some betrayals cut too deep for marriage to survive, but we've built something different, something that works for us and, most importantly, for our son." Victoria retook the microphone. "Hamilton Marketing Solutions succeeded because we understood something fundamental. Modern families don't always look like the picture books. Sometimes your ex-husband becomes your business partner. Sometimes your former father-in-law becomes your child's primary male role model. Sometimes the woman who poured water on your husband's mistress becomes your CEO." Madison laughed loudly at that, starting a wave of applause. "Speaking of family, Victoria continued, I'd like to introduce our newest board member, former Detective Frank Hamilton, whose investigation skills have been invaluable in our due diligence department." Frank stood briefly, waving off the applause with characteristic humility. At 66, he'd found new purpose in protecting Victoria's business interests with the same fervor he'd once pursued criminals. After the presentation, the convention center transformed for Hamilton Marketing's anniversary gala. Victoria changed into an elegant cocktail dress, trading her CEO armor for something softer. Samuel, now 18 months old, toddled between guests in a tiny tuxedo, charming everyone in his path. "Mama," he called, running to Victoria with chubby arms extended. She scooped him up, marveling as always at how this little person had emerged from such chaos. "Hello, my love. Are you being good for Grandpa?" "He's been perfect," Frank said, joining them with a fond smile. "Helped me check the security arrangements twice." "Starting him young," Victoria laughed. "Miss Hamilton?" A young woman approached nervously. "I'm Rebecca Walsh from the Tribune. I was hoping I could ask you a few questions about the Crenshaw case update." Victoria's smile tightened slightly. Even now, Scarlett's name could darken a room. "What update?" she asked carefully. "You haven't heard? Bethany Crenshaw was sentenced to an additional 5 years for running a similar scam from prison. Apparently, she was writing to lonely men, claiming to be pregnant with their children from conjugal visits that never happened." "Of course she was," Madison said, appearing with 2 champagne flutes. "That woman is like a cockroach. Nuclear war couldn't stop her from scamming." "No comment," Victoria said professionally. "Ms. Crenshaw is serving her time. That chapter of our lives is closed." But privately, she felt a grim satisfaction. 20 years in federal prison. 2 decades for Scarlett to contemplate the consequences of weaponizing pregnancy and destroying families. The reporter moved on, and Victoria found herself standing with Madison and Frank, watching Jackson across the room. He was deep in conversation with a young man who, based on his body language, was probably another romance scam victim seeking advice. "He's good at that," Madison observed, "helping other men who fell for the same trap." "He speaks at support groups twice a month," Victoria said. "Says it's part of his amends." "And you?" Frank asked gently. How are your amends to yourself going? Victoria considered this. In therapy, Dr. Martin had helped her understand that she needed to forgive herself too, for missing the signs, for staying too long, for prioritizing her image over her instincts. Better, she said finally. I'm dating again. Nothing serious, but I'm open to possibilities. Good, Frank said firmly. Helen would want you happy, would want you to find real love. I have real love, Victoria said, kissing Samuel's head. Everything else is bonus. The gala continued late into the evening. Jennifer Holbrook made an appearance, her foundation having raised over $2 million for victims of pregnancy fraud. The Dallas victims were there too, now serving as advisors to Hamilton Marketing's Crisis Management Division. But the surprise guest of the evening was Sarah Hamilton, who took the stage near midnight. I want to say something, she announced, slightly tipsy on champagne. My brother was an idiot, a colossal, monumental idiot, but he's my idiot, and I'm proud of the work he's done to earn his place back in this family. Jackson looked mortified but touched. And Victoria, Sarah continued, you're the sister I always wanted. Thank you for not letting his mistakes define your story, or Samuel's story, or any of our stories. She raised her glass. To the Hamilton family. Weird, broken, rebuilt, but stronger than ever. The room toasted and Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. This wasn't the family she'd imagined when she'd married Jackson 8 years ago. It wasn't the life she'd planned when she was pregnant and dreaming of a traditional future. It was messier, more complicated, built on foundations of hard-won trust rather than naive faith. But it was real, and it was hers. Later, as the party wound down, Victoria found herself on the balcony overlooking the Chicago skyline. The city sparkled below, full of promise and possibility. Beautiful view, a voice said behind her. She turned to find Jackson holding a sleeping Samuel. He crashed hard, Jackson said, carefully transferring their son to her arms. Too much excitement. They stood in comfortable silence, no longer husband and wife, but something else, co-parents, business partners, survivors of a shared trauma that had transformed them both. I need to tell you something, Jackson said suddenly. I've been seeing someone. It's new, but I wanted you to hear it from me. Victoria felt a small pang, not jealousy exactly, but the ghost of what they'd once been. Is she good to you? She's a therapist, actually. Someone I met at the support group. She understands the baggage. He paused. I won't introduce her to Samuel until you're comfortable. If you're ever comfortable. Thank you, Victoria said, meaning it, for telling me, for asking, for being the father he deserves even if you couldn't be the husband I needed. Jackson's eyes glistened. Do you think he'll understand someday? Why we're not together? I think, Victoria said carefully, he'll understand that sometimes love means letting go, that 2 happy homes are better than 1 miserable one, that his parents loved him enough to build something new from the ashes of something broken. Samuel stirred in her arms, mumbling something that sounded like Dada in his sleep. I should get him home, Victoria said. I'll walk you to your car, Jackson offered. As they made their way through the emptying gala, Victoria caught sight of their reflection in a mirror. A woman in elegant dress, a man in a tuxedo, a sleeping child between them. To anyone watching, they might have looked like the perfect family, and maybe they were in their own imperfect way. The scandal that had started with a lie on her 35th birthday had led them here. To truth, to success, to a different kind of happily ever after. Victoria Hamilton had learned that sometimes the best pitcher of water is the one you don't throw. Sometimes it's the one you pour with calm deliberation, washing away illusions to reveal what's real beneath. Her company thrived. Her son flourished. Her chosen family surrounded her with love. And somewhere in federal prison, Bethany Louise Crenshaw served year 2 of 20, a cautionary tale about what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness, when you underestimate a woman protecting her child, when you build your life on lies in an age where truth always finds a way. The water pitcher sat in Victoria's office, bronzed and gleaming, a reminder that sometimes the most elegant response to chaos is a simple act that says, enough. No more lies, no more games, no more pretending. Just truth, just growth, just the beautiful, messy, complicated reality of lives rebuilt on foundations strong enough to weather any storm. As Victoria drove home through the quiet Chicago streets, Samuel sleeping peacefully in his car seat, she allowed herself a moment of pure contentment. She had won, not just the court case or the business success, but something far more valuable, the knowledge that she could survive anything, rebuild everything, and emerge stronger than before. The birthday bombshell that had threatened to destroy her had instead revealed her greatest strength, the ability to transform disaster into triumph, one calm, measured choice at a time. And that was better than any fairy tale ending. That was real.